You know, every time a court releases another devastating ruling on school arson attacks in Kenya, the public conversation takes a predictable, lazy route. We see panel discussions and media commentary rushing to demand the return of the cane, shouting loudly about quote unquote spoiled children. But let's pause and remind ourselves of a reality everyone seems to have conveniently forgotten. Corporal punishment is already a direct violation of our laws. The Ministry of Education banned it way back in 2001. And in Article 29 of our Constitution, it explicitly outlaws it. So what happened? In addition to which, the Children's Act of 2022 stripped away any remaining legal justification for physical correction. Yet, despite decades of clear legal prohibition, the hard truth is that many schools never actually stopped caning.
Police in Nyamira are investigating an incident where a primary school teacher reportedly flogged a grade 4 pupil at Riangombe Primary School. Social media users using the tag Justice for Grade 4 Pupil demanded for the immediate arrest and prosecution of the teacher in question for contravening the Ministry of Education's policy on corporal punishment. The pupil is said to have been assaulted last Sunday, and upon realizing his injuries were serious, his teachers conspired to conceal the incident by keeping him in the dorm and denying him medical attention. Wow.
We frequently hear parents and educators defend the cane with a familiar refrain. Oh yeah, we were beaten when we were young and we turned out just fine. But as a practicing therapist, clinical therapist, I see the hidden cost of that lie every single day behind closed doors. I have sat across from countless adults who are deeply psychologically scarred by the very childhood violence they call discipline. But you know, we wouldn't admit it, would we really? Just because we had that experience doesn't mean that our children, who are more outspoken these days, actually need to be beaten. It was being beaten. Yeah? So, many didn't turn out fine. They turned out to be adults carrying severe anxiety, fractured self-esteem, deep-seated abandonment issues, and a total inability to manage their emotions without shutting down or lashing out. But also remember, in beating them into submission, we're actually telling them they're not allowed to speak out. Neither are they allowed to actually speak their own truth, that, you're hurting me. And they're not allowed to be wrong. You can't beat a child for not understanding, for being wrong. Whose responsibility is it? I ask. Yeah, so what are we actually teaching? A wise teacher once told me, every time a child does something wrong, it is an opportunity to train them into doing the right thing. But what are we actually training them to do when we use the cane? We aren't teaching them accountability or emotional regulation. We are teaching them that even though they have the right to beat you up, because for a lot of these situations, from what I have seen, children are beaten. Yeah, so we are teaching them, I've got the power. I've got the control. You have to take what I'm dishing out to you, whether you're right or wrong. Actually, another thing that I've noticed is many of the teachers who hand out beatings never apologize. They never say sorry. They'll just carry on and do what they feel they need to do, which is about their own personal situations. Again, I have to be very clear. I am not talking about all teachers. Neither am I talking about all schools, because there are those schools that don't. That they absolutely don't. Yeah, so I just felt I had to say that. According to local and international child rights frameworks, this isn't correction, folks. It is outright abuse. Because corporal punishment has no real boundaries or rules, it is never about changing behavior. Instead, what we are doing is we're equipping children with highly destructive life skills. We're showing them how to suppress anger until it explodes, how to use violence to force others into submission, how to operate entirely out of fear. We're actively training them to be angry adults. I know we don't want to hear this, but you know what? The reality is that is what happens to them psychologically. And when they eventually enter marriages and workspaces, they discharge that exact negative training, quote unquote, into the world. Caning completely destroys the foundation bond of education. It just goes against everything. Because of this ongoing systemic whipping, these children internalize a heavy truth to them. They feel actively hated by their handlers, and in return, they grow to deeply hate their schools and their educators. This is a reality. And again, just speak to the young people, and they will tell you, I've got friends in their 30s and in their 20s, many who have gone to the public schools where caning is not a big deal. It's like man up or woman up. You deserve what you get, basically, is what people say. Respect cannot be beaten into a human being. When you replace respect with physical terror, which is what it is for many of these children, you create a toxic two-way street of animosity. The children withdraw, the supervisors rule by fear, and the classroom becomes a power keg. Arson and school unrest are not random acts of malice. Honestly, they are not. They are the predictable, devastating languages of children who have been systematically stripped of their voices, their agency, and their basic human dignity. It's that simple, actually. Ultimately, corporal punishment is a form of subjugation, like it or not, forcing children to submit to physical violence carried out by those in power. It is child abuse, plain and simple. A school should be a sanctuary, not a processing factor for trauma, which is what a lot of those children experience. And I just keep coming back to, if you think that burning of schools is rampant now, you try that caning and see what happens. What will come out of it? It's a can of worms, basically. We're opening a can of worms. There's got to be another way of dealing with this. So, what do we want the different people involved to take away from this, as you are watching this? I would say to the education system, it is time to step away from the lazy shortcut of the cane. Well, come on, we're in the 21st century, for Pete's sake. Physical punishment will never fix overcrowded dormitories or the severe, desperate lack of professional counseling. And to the educators, you cannot mentor a child, you're terrorizing. Put yourself in their shoes, and maybe some of us have been in their shoes. Maybe some of you have been in their shoes, and it's just a behavior that is continuing without hesitation, without asking. But we've come such a long way, people. True discipline is about guidance, not physical submission. Come on, not physical submission. To the parents and to the communities, I would say stop advocating for the violation of your own children's rights. Demand environments that treat our young people as human beings who deserve to be heard, represented, have some empathy and an emotional safety net at school. Not they're dreading to go to school because of all the stuff that goes on there that traumatizes them. And I'm not saying every child in every school, but a lot of the public schools, I think actually there should be surprise visits to find out what is really going on in these schools, I think we'd all be extremely shocked. When we resort to the cane, actually, we just admit that we have run out of words, out of patience, and out of better ideas. Long ago, teaching was a ministry. You just didn't end up teaching for the sake of. You believed in teaching. You believed in empowering and enabling these young people to go out and be productive citizens who can stand for themselves, who have integrity and make positive decisions. But now, honestly, it's a can of worms going down this road. We aren't training them where they've erred, actually. We're just teaching them that violence wins and will beat you into submission. I'm sorry, I know I'm sounding quite critical about this caning, because I don't believe in that kind of discipline. That's not discipline. That's not discipline. You're just teaching them to be angry. Let's stop beating them into submission. Let's start training them into the right thing. And the other thing that I've noticed, that many of the people who are actually advocating for beating, because I don't see it as caning, their children don't even go to these schools. They go into the private schools. Yeah? They do. They go into private schools. These are our children. They are precious and we love them. And we cannot really have them being abused in the schools. As once you open up that can of worms, you don't know how those who are in the position of caning, you don't know what's going to happen. But I'm putting out a warning. Watch out what it is that you are putting out there in these young people. Absolutely the wrong way, going against children's rights.